Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Dr. Arunima Sarin, and this is part 2 of our tutorial of filling a psychology PhD application form together. Just to recap, we're using Harvard Psychology's PhD application form as our template. We covered the first quarter of that form in part 1. If you haven't seen that yet, check out the other video. Today we'll cover another quarter of the form. Let's get into it. So this is our application form. When we log in, it shows us the instruction page again. And we can see that there's a number of tabs on the left. In part 1 of this video, we covered all of these tabs, starting from degree program selection all the way to faculty. Today, we'll pick up roughly the next quarter and address all the tabs from language background to employment history. So the first tab we'll get started with is language background. Now, this tab asks us to list all non-native languages in which we are proficient. And it also asks us to tell them any languages that we have formally studied, but also any languages we might have acquired through informal ways. So for a good example is if you are not a native English speaker, then your knowledge of your native language you might have acquired informally, which means you never really learned it at school. You didn't learn it as a formal language. You didn't learn its rules of grammar or things like that, but you just can speak it fluently. The first tab asks us about the language we want to tell them about. So let's say my native language was both English and Hindi. So let's start with Hindi. My oral proficiency is fluent. Written proficiency is fluent. Length of formal study. Now, if you learned this informally, you don't have to write it. I actually did learn Hindi formally as well. I was taught it in school and I took it till I was in 8th grade. So I'd say that I studied it for about 7 years. Other means of language skill acquisition. So this is any other way that you acquired fluency with the language that doesn't involve formal training. I'm going to write something like commonly spoken socially. Institution where most advanced formal study took place. So because I said that I have studied this language formally, I can now write down the place where I did most of that training, which was my school. So I'm going to write the name of my school. Most advanced course complete. The next thing asks us for the title, number, and grade for the most advanced course we've done. So the last time I studied Hindi formally was when I was in 10th grade in India. So the course was called Hindi Course A. That was the title. There was no number. And then the grade was 92%. So that completes the first language that I have experience in. The next one I'm going to write about is English. I have fluent proficiency in written and oral English. Length of formal study. So I actually studied English all the way up to 12th grade. And then we had some classes even in college, but I'm not going to count those. I'll count till 12th grade. So length of formal study is about 12 years. Other means of language acquisition, spoken, publicly, socially, institution where most advanced formal study took place. I'm going to write the name of my school again. And then the name of my course and grade. You can keep on filling this, obviously, for however many languages you have proficiency in. All right, let's move on. The next tab asks us about our proficiency in English. If you click yes to the question of if English is your native language, it asks you nothing else and you can continue on to the next tab. If you click no, it will ask you to write down your native language. And then it opens up this box of information. It tells you different ways in which you can demonstrate proficiency in English, as that is a requirement to study at graduate school. And I think that would be true for most programs across the United States. The rest of this page then lists out different ways in which you can demonstrate your proficiency in English. So if you have an undergraduate degree from an academic institution where English is the primary language of instruction, if that's not the case, then you can either take TOEFL or the IELTS, and it's telling you what the minimum threshold of points is that you need to score on whichever one you take. There is a little star here telling you that Specific degree programs may require the applicants to have a higher score. This is, I think, the university's bare minimum, so it's worth checking with the exact department what those are, and we can look at the psychology program's requirements. So if we open this link in a new tab, it takes us back to the main Graduate School of Arts and Sciences degree page where we access the application from. From here, we can look for our program. So we're going to do that. We can scan this page first to see if it requires any standardized tests, because that's what these two are. And on the page here, it only mentions GRE, not the other two. We can also, just to be doubly sure, go to the actual page of Department of Psychology and their own admissions page for graduate programs. As you scan through this page, there's no mention of any additional benchmark or threshold the department has for your TOEFL or IELTS scores. There is, however, a clear mention of a requirement for GRE scores. It says extremely clearly here, for fall 2025 admissions, the submission of GRE scores is required for applicants to the clinical science area and optional but recommended for applicants to the social, developmental, and CBB areas. So while there's no requirement there's no additional requirement that the department places on your TOEFL and IELTS scores, they recommend, if you're applying to social, developmental, or cognitive, they recommend you take the GRE. And if you're applying to clinical, you are required to take the GRE. Okay, going back to our application form, you scroll further down, you get to tell them which one you took, and it's asking you to send your TOEFL or IELTS scores directly to the graduate program. So this is an option that you can avail when you sit and take these exams. Before you actually start with the examination, you have an option to write where you would like to send these scores. I think, at least back in the day when I took it, you could send your scores to up to 5 universities as part of the application fee. And if you wanted to send it to any more, then you had to pay extra. I don't know if that's changed, but it is possible to send your examination scores from TOEFL and IELTS directly to the universities, and you need to make sure to do that. They also list out some further details that you might want to be careful of if you have to do this, such as ensuring that your first name, last name, date of birth are the same on your test report and the ones that you enter in the application portal. Also, be careful to submit everything by the application deadline. So they have to receive all of your material by the application deadline. If it's applicable, you will be prompted to self-report test scores in the next section of the application, which is if you've taken these tests and you already have the results, they do want you to send the results officially through the portal, but they also are going to ask you to self-report those results. Now, the next page asks us for these test scores. So again, just as a background, this page allows us to let them know of our test scores ourselves. So we self-report them here. That doesn't mean we don't have to also send them to the university through official channels. And it's something that they explain here again. You're going to self-report the test now, but you also need to send it to the graduate school officially through the testing platform. But let's do one example here together. So we add test at the bottom here. It asks us for test type, GRE, subtype general, write down the test date. This has to be done. You have to have your results back before the actual deadline. So make sure that you do this well in advance. Then we need to give them the scaled score that we get back from the test, as well as the percentile. So we're going to add those details and save, and then move on. All right, the next tab asks us to upload our CV or resume. It does mention here that if there are any website links that you want the admissions committee to see, those are going to be passed along as plain text when you upload your resume. So they encourage you to upload those, to mention those in the digital portfolio, which we will see in, I think, part 3. For now, this is a fairly simple, easy step. It's asking you to upload your resume or CV. It's telling you the format that should be uploaded in, which is PDF or Word. You choose file, you upload the file, click continue. Easy peasy. The next section asks us to list our employment history. The description here tells us to list all of our employment experiences since secondary school, which roughly translates to grades 6th to 12th, so middle school, high school, roughly from the time that you're about 11, 12 to the time that you're 18, right before college. And then it tells you to include jobs that you did even part-time while you were at college or university. Usually I would share things in a reverse chronological order, but I think in the past, because we've listed things in a forward chronological order, that's just what I'm going to stick to now. So let's click add employer. I didn't do any part-time work when I was in school, but I did work. I did many internships when I was at college. So we can start to list those. I worked at a hospital as an intern. The country was India, city New Delhi, region Delhi, dates of employment, let's say June 2010, August 2010. And then in the description box, I would highlight those aspects of that experience where you had the most input and autonomy. And I would describe it in very active verbs. So for instance, as an intern at the hospital, I prepared patient history. I gave weekly presentations on topics in psychology. Right, and then we can save it and add another one. The key here, usually in our CVs, because of the constraints of space, we only talk about the most relevant experiences and we present only a handful. If you have a broader range of experiences, if you've done more jobs, including part-time jobs, this is a great place for you to talk about them, to demonstrate them. The only thing I would bear in mind is the way you describe your work. I would make sure to describe it using active verbs and highlight the most relevant parts of the experience where you had autonomy, where you had some contribution. Once we're done, we're just going to click continue. All right, with that, we are at the end of part 2 of this video series where we fill out a psychology PhD application form together. We're going to pick this up and do the next roughly quarter-ish in part 3. In the meantime, don't forget to like this video, share it with others who might find it useful, and subscribe for more content like this. Check out my website and see you later.